Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 mini-series with the Los Angeles Angels. And we just completed the 2027 first-year player draft. 5 first-rounders that we're still negotiating with picked the college pitcher Jake Riley out of Stanford in the first round. Interesting shortstop prospect, high schooler Andres Trujillo in the second. Luis Trujillo and Manny Cruz, a couple of high school pitchers in the third and fourth, although Luis Trujillo is impossible to sign, likely looking for a massive amount of money, so we'll most likely just be getting another third-round pick for him next year when we don't sign him this year. And then a second college player, the reliever Tyler Koopman, in the fifth round. So hopefully we can get those guys on board relatively soon. Also in the last episode, we talked about several trades that we made. The most impactful was bringing on Taj Bradley to hopefully be a top starter for us for the next few years. We also traded for Joan Duran and Ryan Walker to bolster our bullpen. Unfortunately, to pick up Bradley, we had to give up, and to make some of these other trades, had to give up our current closer, Luke Weaver, had to give up one of the top prospects in our organization and some other prospects as well. Lineup-wise, we added Dylan Cruz, who we think can be helpful against left-handed pitching for us, although don't necessarily view him as an everyday player. So we've made some pretty significant progress in hopefully helping this team win for the near term and hopefully the medium term as well with the trades that we've made. One thing that we are considering now, though, is trading away Adley Rutschman, something that NS1 CLRK mentioned exploring, and it wasn't something I was considering all that strongly, given that at 49 and 40 and holding on to the final wild card spot in the American League at this point, we are certainly a win now team. And Rutschman is a good defensive catcher with a good bat who's put up a 119 WRC plus and a 2.6 WAR for us this year in his final arbitration eligible season. So the thought was we play things out this year with Rutschman, try to be as competitive as possible, and then head to the off season, and we either make him a qualifying offer and get him back at a pretty reasonable $20-ish million for next year, make him a qualifying offer, and when he moves on to another team, likely get a first-round supplemental pick as compensation, or just get him signed up right now. And he's looking for 8 years, about $23 million. So a pretty significant obligation for this team, and he wants an opt-out after 4 seasons. But we could certainly sign him now and just end the debate. And when we do take a look, we've got just about enough money available for extensions next year to bring Rutschman back if we want. So that was kind of the initial plan, to try to make a run at things this year with him, particularly with the trades we made. Feel like we will definitely have a winning record. Hopefully we'll get this team into the playoffs, and once we're in the playoffs, you never know. But when I did decide to shop Mr. Rutschman, most of the options were underwhelming, as we'd expect, given the trade difficulty that we're playing with. But there were a couple that at least made me start thinking about what this team could look like if we moved on from Rutschman. And this year, most likely, we'd move Logan O'Hoppe from his DH role into more of a full-time catcher role. He's got a 76 WRC plus this year in what's been a down year for him offensively. He's been below replacement level overall, and he's certainly a downgrade defensively also from Rutschman, which, given that we are a team that's trying to build up the pitching staff and trying to compete for a title, anything that kind of damages our pitchers' chances of success is not optimal. If we did move on from Rutschman for the near term, Drake Baldwin, who we've had in AAA, and it's kind of funny, Drake Baldwin just made his official major league debut, but I think he's a guy that the last couple years of OOTP, he's had an impact on the teams and the leagues I've been playing with, so I feel like even though this has happened in the future from here in 2025, I feel like he's already a well-established major leaguer, even though he only made his real debut within the past few days. But anyways, Baldwin gives us a left-handed hitter who could be a competent-ish bat against right-handed pitching, and he would give us defense more similar to what we're familiar with from Rutschman. He's been a slightly above average offensive player in AAA Salt Lake over these past couple of years. So if we traded away Rutschman this year, we would definitely be taking a hit offensively, and we would also take a hit defensively, presumably with Ohapi catching much more frequently than he is today. Thinking about the future, though, if we promoted Baldwin to AAA, that would let us move the 21-year-old Juan Flores from AA to AAA. He's been a slightly below average offensive player over the last season and a half in AA, but a very competent defensive catcher and a right-handed bat that we think at the very least could be respectable in the majors against left-handed pitching. So as I start thinking next year, it's conceivable that Ohapi would return to a DH role. We'd have Flores playing against left-handed pitching for us, Baldwin playing against right-handed pitching for us, and between Baldwin and Flores a year from now, I think you can argue that we would be similar behind the plate to what we had with Rutschman, albeit not as good offensively. So then the question I ask myself is, how much of an offensive hit can we take? Right now we've got a very good offensive player at catcher. We've already got holes in the lineup at shortstop with Volpe and center field with Grant McCray, where we focused this past off season on bringing in defensive help, but there are a couple of guys that have not contributed much of anything offensively. Even though catcher, shortstop, and center field are arguably the three most defensive positions on the field in regular baseball and OOTP, can we really afford to be 20%-ish plus below average offensively at all three of those positions? And I don't know that we can, but the other thing that we need to factor into the equation is that Andres Rodriguez could be our center fielder next year. He's the guy that we picked 6th overall in last year's draft, who's now listed as the number 2 prospect in baseball. We promoted him several weeks ago to AAA Salt Lake, and he's certainly holding his own, hitting .275, 4 homers and 15 ribbies and 80 at-bats. Above average offensive player, and he's he's over half a win above replacement in those 22 games. So he's holding his own in AAA. He's certainly not quite ready for the majors yet. But between his speed and his outfield range, we think glove-wise he should be similar to what we've gotten from McCray, if not maybe a little better with his range. Speed-wise, very useful. And then offensively, if he continues to develop over the next few months, Rodriguez would ultimately be an upgrade from McCray in center field, someone who could hopefully hit closer to the middle of the order. And then I would argue we've got a good offensive player in center field with the youngster. And then we've got defensive-focused guys at shortstop and catcher. But by next season, I could argue that we're in a similar defensive spot and we're a similar offensive spot, just trading the good offensive catcher for hopefully a good offensive center fielder. So it definitely made me a little more willing to consider moving on from Rutschman. But what really made us willing to strongly consider moving on from Rutschman, even if there may be a bit of short-term pain this year, is that, as I noted, I think the offense and the defense are ultimately pretty similar next year if we end up swapping Rutschman for Rodriguez in the lineup. And we're clearly bringing on a player, if we make this trade, who should help us somewhere else. And as much as I want to have a winning record and expect to have a winning record this year, as much as I want to make the playoffs this year, I don't know if we are quite yet a championship team. So there's part of me that thinks you trade away Rutschman, take the short-term pain right now for the medium to long-term gain of the scenario I outlined, and potentially bringing on a pretty big player. So we have shopped Mr. Rutschman, and there are a lot of options out there for him, as you can see. Most of the options are not particularly inspiring for a player of his ability, especially given that we are trying to contend right now. And if we just let him leave next year, we'll get a first-round pick in return, most likely. But there are two that really stood out to me. One is Drew Rasmussen from the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, we did just trade the Rays for Taj Bradley. Rasmussen is a guy that we've been looking at because right now he is expected to be the top free agent pitcher available next year. However, he's been out for a week and a half with elbow inflammation. We don't know when he's going to come back. Not making a ton of money this year. My hunch is that with the Rays saving some money from giving up on Taj Bradley and trading him to us, that they, if they don't trade away Rasmussen, will make a strong bid to retain him to keep at least parts of their rotation together next year. And Rasmussen certainly better than Bradley at this point, albeit soon to be 32 years old, but has a 1.29 ERA plus and an 82 FIP minus over the course of his career. Rather than hoping a guy like Rasmussen makes it to free agency next year, we just trade for him right now, despite our concerns about that elbow inflammation, try to sign him for the long term with the money that we would save by not having Rutschman on board. And when we look at the upcoming free agents next year, you can see that offensive player-wise, Rutschman, one of the better everyday players out there. Supposedly says he's only going to be looking for $16 million, but as we saw, he's looking for a lot more from us, at least right now. And pitching-wise, our new closer, Duran, along with Bautista and Hoffman, going to be potentially free agents next year. And then Rasmussen does head up the crew of starting pitchers that are out there. But if we brought him on board, we would have just about enough money to get him locked up for next year. So that's certainly one option. But it's not, to me, the option that really made me stop and pause and seriously think about the suggestion that NS1 Clark had made, because we have been searching offline for young pitchers, good pitchers that we can build a rotation around. And I've made trade offers offline for just about all of these guys, and for the most part, teams have been unwilling to even engage with me and incredibly unrealistic about what they want in return. But there's one guy that's available for Rutschman that's pretty darn tempting to me, and that's Spencer Schwellenbach from the Atlanta Braves organization. 27-year-old. He's going to be heading into his arbitration year, so expected to make good money next year. But we would have 3 years of control for Schwellenbach. And he is a guy who, over the course of 4 seasons in the majors, parts of 4 seasons, has put up a 1.20 ERA plus and an 88 FIP minus for the Braves. Looks like a good solid 2.5 to 3.5 WAR player. Don't love that he's got fly ball tendencies. He does tend to give up some home runs, and our stadium is a slightly higher than average propensity to allow home runs as well, so that's going to be an issue with him, or a potential issue with him. But his stuff and his movement are average, and we think his stuff can continue to improve. He's got outstanding control and a 5-pitch arsenal, decent stamina, decent at holding on runners. And as I said, we'd have 3.5 years of team control if we brought Mr. Schwellenbach on board. So the way I've kind of thought about this is we're definitely taking a step back this year, offensively and defensively at catcher, if we bring Schwellenbach on board. But if all goes well in terms of Andres Rodriguez's development, next year we're a similar offensive team to what we would have been this year. We've also got Schwellenbach in the rotation, and we're still going to be heading into this upcoming off season with a decent amount of money to spend, even with him on the books. Now we miss out on a potential first-round compensatory pick by letting Rutschman go. But to me, Schwellenbach, as a young starter, normal injury proneness, who's a proven major leaguer with 3.5 years of team control, is a pretty attractive asset to get for a guy who, if we don't sign him to an extension, is with us for just another half a season. And then we do get a first-round pick in return. But even if we were able to draft a pitcher as good as Schwellenbach with that first-round compensatory pick, which is certainly uncertain, it's going to be most likely 4, 5, or 6 years until that guy's able to help us in the majors, even in a good-case scenario. At which point, not to let reality get in the way of trying to play the game properly, but we'll likely have moved on to our long play series and won't still be playing with these Los Angeles Angels anyways. So to me, the question becomes not whether we want to get a first-round compensatory pick for Rutschman next year by letting him play things out, but are we a better team next year with a 27-year-old Spencer Schwellenbach, or are we a better team next year with a 30-year-old Adley Rutschman who's looking to make, as we talked about, well over $20 million for the next 8 years and prefers to opt out after 4 seasons? Rutschman is a big name, but we have to be honest, the 2 most productive seasons he had were in his mid-20s in 2022 and 2023 in Baltimore. He's still been a league average or better offensive player every year. But as we noted, he's heading towards age 30 next season. And you would tend to think that the 119 WRC plus that he's putting up this year could be the best season he has for the rest of his career. Not that we're going to disparage the Orioles organization for overhyping their catchers, because Rutschman is already a 3-time All-Star and a Silver Slugger winner, and he is at this point. Granted, some of it is in this fictional baseball universe, but certainly been a more productive offensive player than another highly touted Orioles catcher from about 15 years ago in Matt Wieters, who had a good solid close to decade as a starting major league catcher. But it feels like Kutchman is not quite the player that we thought he might be a few years ago. And if we're not going to sign him for the long term to that kind of money, which I don't think we're going to, the opportunity to get Schwellenbach in return is pretty tempting to me. This, similar to the decision we made a couple seasons ago when we decided to trade away Mike Trout, coincidentally, for Rutschman, is one that I've just got to make on my own. I obviously would appreciate hearing after this episode what our loyal viewers, the worldwide scouting department think about this decision. But I think I'm inclined to take the one offer out of these dozens of options we have available to straight up trade Adley Rutschman that I think is the most interesting. I think, as I noted, it makes us a little weaker this year, which for a team that is trying to have a winning record, trying to make the playoffs, and then ultimately trying to win it all is a step back. But I don't know that we're a true contender right now. And if I'm not going to re-sign Rutschman at 20, 22, 23 million a year for several seasons into the future, I think I'd rather have Schwellenbach to really build the rotation alongside Taj Bradley around for the next several seasons and try to make very serious runs at the title, not just this year, but hopefully for the next several seasons, as I noted, with Schwellenbach, Bradley, and hopefully Michael King leading the rotation. And then getting Andres Rodriguez into the lineup and heading into this upcoming offseason with some money to spend to supplement the team. So we are leaning towards making the trade. I'm going to see if I can get anything else in it. It looks like the odds of that are not that high, as they're not even willing to retain all of Schwellenbach's modest contract. So looks like it's going to be Rutschman for Schwellenbach. Would love to hear what you think about it. I think it definitely hurts a little bit this year, but I think if I'm thinking about what this team can accomplish over the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, if I've made the decision not to keep Rutschman, I'd rather have Schwellenbach than a first-round compensatory pick. So we are going to go ahead and complete this major trade. Fans obviously not happy that Rutschman is gone. Only a 2-point hit to fan interest, though, so not a major issue. Open up some money this year and for extensions by making that trade. And now we got the type of rotation I'm really interested in. So with 5 trades now made today on Sunday, July 11th, 2027, as well as 20 new players drafted, a huge day in the history of the Los Angeles Angels franchise, and one that we hope will ultimately set us up for postseason success and perhaps a championship. Schwellenbach into the rotation. He's actually going to be starting today for us since it's been 5 days since he last pitched. And Baldwin, who we just promoted, is going to be our everyday catcher. So that will limit the defensive hit that we take from losing Rutschman, but certainly not expecting Baldwin to be as good offensively, particularly against left-handed pitching. But we just didn't really have any other great options. We'll keep Mr. O'Hoppe in as our backup catcher / everyday DH, and we'll give Baldwin a chance. So the bottom of the lineup for this year with Baldwin, Volpe, and McRae is very good to excellent defensively, but we have a feeling mediocre to bad offensively. Bit of a bold move. As I said, I felt like we could be taking a step back for this year. Right now we rank 5th in runs scored, 10th in runs allowed, 11th in defensive efficiency, and 8th in zone rating. Would expect that we could trend a little lower in terms of runs scored. Hopefully we'll move up in terms of the pitching with the changes that we've now made to our bullpen and our pitching staff. And ultimately, hopefully we end the season with a winning percentage of over .550, which will indicate that we at least held serve, if not improved, over these last 2.5 months of the season. Not inconceivable that we won't make some other moves. The one thing that I do need to address is that with the recent acquisitions of Schwellenbach, Bradley, Duran, and Walker, we've had to move a lot of guys down to the minors, and unfortunately it's our left-handed pitchers that have had the options. Reed Detmers, who was an all-star for us a couple years ago, bounced from the rotation, bounced to the bullpen, and now in the minors. And the lefty reliever McDaniels, also somebody that we sent down. So just one lefty on the pitching staff right now, Gabe Spire. What we have done is we have added a few of our right-handed pitchers to the trade block, minor leaguers, and then among the major leaguers, Rosny Contreras, Robert Stevenson, and Jason Adam, all on the trade block. Don't know how much interest they will generate, but wouldn't mind getting another left-handed pitcher up into the bullpen in the not-too-distant future. And at the very least, if we do make it to the playoffs, then we don't have to deal with the issues of guys who are out of options or guys who refuse to be sent down, and we can get a couple more lefties into the bullpen at that point if we feel that we've got the right people there. So we may have already done the big lifting for this trade deadline, but we still have just about 3 weeks until we get there. And right now, hopefully we can play some better baseball with this new look team. We've gotten off to a bit of a slow start here in the month of July. Got a little over a week until the trade deadline at Arizona, 4 at Seattle, and then 3 at Texas before the All-Star game, not before the trade deadline. After the trade deadline, we'll finish up, or after the All-Star game, we'll finish up with a long homestand against the Guardians, the Astros, and the Mets to get us to the end of the month. So hopefully over these next 8 games, all on the road, we can be at least 500, if not a little better. Get a little break for the All-Star game, and then hopefully hit things hard with that long homestand at the end of July. And obviously we're going to miss Rutschman, but things felt pretty good in Schwellenbach's first start. A 12-0 dominant victory against a Diamondbacks team that has bounced back big this year. Just 1 hit allowed over 6 innings for Schwellenbach in his first start with us. Did walk 3, strike out 2. Contreras, who we mentioned is potentially on the trade block, now struck out 5 over 3 innings of scoreless relief. So hopefully we can keep that momentum going over the next week until we get to the All-Star break. And then sometimes injuries take care of the pitching issues by themselves. Ben Joyce, who has basically been a disaster ever since we signed him to that extension, going to be undergoing Tommy John surgery. Likely will miss the start of next season. Did okay when he was rehabbing, bouncing back this year in Salt Lake, but was brutal in the majors. 5 games pitched, just 1 2/3 innings pitched, and he had 3 meltdowns in that limited sample size. 6 hits, including a homer, and 3 walks, so a 37.80 ERA and a ridiculous 5.40 whip for him in his limited sample size. Joyce heading to the 60-day IL, obviously, and then well, that'll be one way for us to get a lefty back from AAA to balance out the bullpen a little bit, but not the way we wanted to do it, losing the flame-throwing 26-year-old. And you may remember we picked Luis Trujillo in the 3rd round. We offered him slot, and that was so offensive to the impossible-to-sign pitcher that he is unwilling to negotiate any further with us. As we expected, we'll receive adequate compensation pick in the upcoming draft, which was kind of our intent in bringing him on board in the 3rd round anyways. We didn't love any of the other options, so figured we might kick the can to next year with an extra pick, and that's exactly what will happen. So he's broken off negotiations for the time being. Still waiting to hear from Riley, the other Trujillo, Cruz, and Koopman, hoping to get them into our organization soon, particularly the college players, Riley and Koopman, who will both be assigned to A-ball to begin their major league careers shortly. And we did end up getting the 500 record. We were hoping in those 8 road games before the All-Star break, but we did it kind of a hard way. Won the first 2 and then lost 4 in a row at Seattle and the Rangers before bouncing back to win 4-0 and 6-1 these final 2 games before the All-Star break. So 53-44 record at the All-Star break for our Angels. Still third place in the AL West, although we've slipped to 5.5 games out in the division. And we are tied for the final wild card spot in the American League with the Kansas City Royals, 4 games up on the Yankees and 5 up on the White Sox. Zach Neto, third in the American League in stolen bases, is our only player on the leaderboard at this point. I mentioned we had to trade Luke Weaver to be able to bring Taj Bradley on board, as well as one of the top prospects in our organization. So Weaver and his 28 saves are now part of the Tampa Bay Rays organization here on July 18th. Take a look at the rosters for the All-Star Prospects game as well as the actual All-Star game, and a couple of Los Angeles Angels represented in the All-Star Prospects game. Sean Gamble, who was our first-round pick back in 2025, second overall. Very productive this year in high A ball. We'll likely be moving him up to AAA shortly, even though he's only 21 years old, having a monster season with a 170 WRC+. We're just trying to get him as versatile as possible, although he'll likely be a infielder when all is said and done. He's got some skills in the outfield as well, so we're going to try to get him trained and as versatile as possible. And then Andres Rodriguez, who is our center fielder of the future, also was a participant in the prospects game. Batting average in AAA is now 268, but he has boosted the WRC plus to 111. Now has 6 homers and 19 ribbies and 97 at-bats, and he is 7 for 7 stealing bases in AAA this year. And as it turned out, Andres Rodriguez got the MVP award for the All-Star Prospects game, and it happened here in Anaheim. So good to see one of the top prospects in baseball and the top prospect in our organization, who hopefully will help pick up some of the slack from losing Mr. Rutschman, having a big game on the big stage. As far as the upcoming big stage, All-Star rosters have been announced. We've got one pitcher on the All-Star team this year, Christian Scott. We picked him up while he was injured on the Mets, took a gamble on him, and he's become a very valuable pitcher for us. 7-5 with a 3.16 ERA this year. Struck out 120 batters in 114 innings and has put up a 2.6 WAR for us. And he is now a first-time All-Star. Nice bounce-back season this year from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 134 WRC plus and a 2.2 WAR. He's got 18 homers and 65 ribbies, despite a stint on the 10-day IL earlier this year. So good to see Guerrero Jr. Being very productive, and he's an All-Star with the Angels for the first time, following in his father's footsteps. Zach Neto, also a first-time All-Star. Batting average has dipped to 256 this year, but he's displaying a lot more power, 22 homers and 52 ribbies. He's also stolen 24 bases, so he's got a chance to be a 30-30 guy this year. 127 WRC plus and a 2.5 WAR for him after he's moved to second base from shortstop with the addition this past offseason of Anthony Volpe. And our old buddy, Mike Trout, was named an All-Star for Baltimore. So that's interesting to see. Rutschman was not named an All-Star. Interesting that last year's number 1 draft pick, Ivan Ramos, is already an All-Star. He jumped right to the majors. He was in the development league last summer after they picked him up out of the University of Albany. And he's hitting 248 with 16 homers and 48 ribbies as a rookie. And the 24-year-old is a all-star catcher as a rookie, so that's pretty impressive. Trout, as I noted, also an all-star, 298 average, 15 homers, 54 ribbies. He's put up a 3.5 WAR this year for the Orioles, so he has done very well for them. We've already moved on from the guy that we primarily received in the trade for Trout, moving on from Rutschman. So we're going to have to monitor what we get out of Schwellenbach over the coming years, because that's, at this point, our ultimate return from moving on from the franchise icon. And we've won 2 out of 3 at home against the Guardians coming out of the All-Star break. So 5 games left at home before we get to the trade deadline. 6.5 out in the division. We do have a 2-game lead on the Royals for that final final wild card spot after the Royals, after winning 7 in a row, have now dropped 3 in a row. So we will take a look right now with you at what the trade block looks like at this point. Obviously, most of the deals that we've done were for guys who weren't ultimately on the trade block. Pitching wise, looking at all of the pitchers available, some useful relievers out there, particularly the lefty reliever Sam Hentges definitely could help us. Wonder exactly what they're looking for. I mentioned that we've got some lefties in AAA, but certainly Hentges probably a higher end reliever than the guys that we have stashed there. 109 ERA plus and a 77 FIP minus over the course of his career, and he's been better than that over the past couple of seasons with the Yankees. Since they are still a contender, my hunch is that they're going to be looking for a lot for him. Actually, less than I might have hoped, or less than I feared would be the way to describe that. But there's a lot of guys we could send to them to get a deal done. Obviously, some of them, Rodriguez, Schwellenbach, Neto, Kraft, certainly aren't going to be on the list, but there are some lesser players and lesser prospects that we could consider sending to the Yankees. And I guess they have moved to a rebuilding phase. They weren't far behind us in the playoff race. I mean, they are only 6 out of the wild card, but 48-50, a losing record, is disastrous for the Yankees, and they are 14.5 behind the Red Sox and 14 behind the Orioles in the division. So that's certainly something for us to investigate, take a look, especially with the weaker offense that we fear we may have going forward, as to whether there are any big-time batters who can help us. And Tyler O'Neill's certainly got a little pop in the bat. Wonder if he's continued the home run streak on opening day in this universe. Taylor Ward, former member of our team, respectable bat. You know, doesn't really look like there's any true difference makers available as far as position players who are out there. We'll investigate the options and see if maybe there's someone who can help. But, you know, Dalton Varsho in center field could be somebody to think about if we want to upgrade defensively a little bit. I don't even actually know how much of an upgrade it is defensively over McCrary. It's probably pretty close defensively, but I think a little better offensively than what we've gotten from McCrary. He's going to be making over $12 million next year, and given that we'd like to turn center field over to Rodriguez, that might be a little expensive for us. They're also looking for a pretty legitimate player in return, although Dylan Cruz could work. We just brought him on board recently. He's only hitting $150, although he does have a homer and 4 ribbies and just 20 at-bats. Haven't really given him a fair shot. But Varsho could be a way over the near term to upgrade in center field from what we've got right now with McCrary. So that's something I'll continue to investigate offline. Jake Myers, another guy who certainly could be similar defensively to McCrary, with probably a bit more offense. And Myers not making a ton of money because the Astros retained 80% of his salary and he's in the final year of his contract. My hunch is he might be a pretty low-cost option for us. Certainly more guys who can get the trade done. So I'll spend some time perusing some of the players that we've talked about, as well as everyone else on the trading block, and figure out if there's any options to perhaps give this team a little boost as we try to not just have a winning record, but guide the team into the playoffs and then see what happens in October. And we are going to make a trade that will hopefully help balance out our bullpen. We are going to trade for the lefty reliever, Sam Hentges, from the Yankees. He's in the final year of his contract, so it is a pure rental, but he has been a effective pitcher over the course of his major league career, as we talked about, with a 109 ERA plus and a 77 FIP minus. And we are going to finally deal away Robert Bob Stevenson. The 34-year-old signed to a pretty reasonable contract, $1.5 million team options for the next couple years. Still has really good stuff coming off of all the injuries he had with us over the first couple years of this playthrough, but he's fragile physically, and he's put up a 4.36 ERA over 33 innings pitched for us this year. BABIP against him over 400, so he's certainly gotten very unlucky. His WAR of 0.7 and his Sierra of 311, along with that FIP minus of 66, indicates that he's been reasonably effective for us. But still think that Hentges is ultimately a better pitcher and will give us a third lefty out of the pen. The 40-man roster is full, and as we've talked about, there is not anyone that we can really demote without sending him through waivers off of the 26-man roster, so kind of needed, in my view, to get a reliever off of the roster to make room for the reliever Hentges, and Stevenson made sense to me. Ryan Walker they would have also taken. Prefer to keep Walker around, a little bit younger, a little healthier. Would have loved to deal them Jason Adam, but that would not have gotten the deal done, so he'll continue to be a middle reliever for us. But one trade here as we get closer to the trade deadline, and now the bullpen with three lefties out there following the trade and then the injury that Mr. Joyce suffered kind of puts us in a much more balanced bullpen position for these last couple months of the season and hopefully into the playoffs. And we swept the second series of the homestand against our division rival Astros, so now 5-1 since the All-Star break. 2 games left before the trade deadline against the Mets at home. Taking a look at the standings here, still third in the division, but we've closed the gap to just 4 on the Rangers, and we're only 2 behind the Mariners. And we're once again widening the lead in the All-Star race. Right now or the wild card race, we are 4 games up on the Royals for the final wild card spot in the American League. So it seems like we're playing a bit better of late. Hopefully those trades are helping us out. Continuing to investigate some other options. Don't know if anything's imminent. I am checking in on those center fielders. Still wouldn't mind if we can get a little boost to that position. We'll take a look at the team statistics here, and runs scored. We are still 5th, which was where we were. Runs allowed 9th, so those things don't change particularly quickly. But we have a winning record here in the month of July for the potentially 4th consecutive month, assuming that we can win at least one of these final 2 games against the Mets. So we have been a consistently good team this season. Can't say we've been great, but feel like we've definitely made some progress over the course of this year, and with the trades we've made, hopefully have set up particularly the starting rotation to be much stronger going forward than it has been in the past. And I've been tempted to bring on Jake Myers. The price for him is definitely less than the price for Dalton Varsho, and it's less of a long-term commitment. Think that as a right-handed hitter, he could perform capably for us as the center fielder against left-handed pitching, which would allow us to move Kyle Tucker to a corner outfield spot. So there could definitely be some merit to bringing him on board. The issue that I'm struggling with is that we'd benefit defensively from moving Tucker to a corner outfield spot. But that would mean that we're either going to send the right-handed batters Joe Adell or Dylan Cruz to the bench. Cruz hasn't been great for us. but he's bouncing back from that slow start to get his WRC plus up to 95, and is a pretty respectable offensive player against left-handed pitching in particular, where we're going to play him. And then Adele has put up a 118 WRC plus this year, playing primarily against right-handed pitching for us. So although we'd be getting Tucker out of center field, not sure really how much we'd be upgrading the offense, because we'd have to take Cruz, Adele, or I guess Logan O'Hoppe at DH out of the lineup to make room for Myers. And given that we are hopefully not too far away from Andres Rodriguez being able to make his major league debut, the thought is that it might be just a little bit redundant to bring either Myers or Varsho on board. Rodriguez really starting to take to AAA, has the batting average up to 284, 7 homers and 21 ribbies in 34 games. He's also 10 for 10 stealing bases, has a 119 WRC plus. Doesn't look like, in terms of the contact and the home run power, that he's quite ready to play a major league center field for us yet. But I don't see the guys available on the trade market being that much better than him at this point. And given that we expect we'll have him potentially up in September, just a month from now, I think I might be patient and not make a big move. Start thinking about what Rodriguez might be looking for a long-term contract. 10 years, $110 million. Given our expectations for him, if we were going to be playing this for the long term, that's certainly a deal that we might consider just giving him right now. However, for the next few years, when he's going to be making the major league minimum, selfishly, that might be the proper way for us to play things going forward, at least for the near term. And another reason not to make that trade potentially is that the corner outfielder Matthew Lugo only going to be injured for one more day with the high ankle sprain. Another right-handed hitting batter who looks like he can at least be competent against left-handed pitching. He hasn't been good for us this year with just a 47 WRC plus. With the addition of Cruz, who we traded for while he was hurt, Lugo likely will be going down to AAA when he's healthy. But another right-handed hitter that we do have in our organization that makes me think that going after one of those other outfielders is just a little bit redundant at this point. And we won yesterday in 10 innings against the Mets to extend the winning streak to 4 and run our record at this homestand to 6-1. Hopefully we'll finish off the month of July with another victory. Don't think we're going to do anything at the trade deadline at this point. I had the 5 trades that we did that we talked about, 4 of them before this episode, 1 right at the start of this episode, and then most recently made the trade to bolster the left-handed side of our bullpen, engaging with the Yankees. So 6 trades that we've made over these last few weeks, and think the team is in a pretty good position to hopefully end up in the playoffs come October. And we did get another W against the Mets to finish off the month of July, so we made it to August. We are past the trade deadline. Looks like a pretty busy schedule for the month of August, only 2 off days on the 12th and the 19th. So we'll see how we can do staying healthy in the dog days of August. But as we sit here with 2 months left in the season, 4 back in the division, we're 9-1 in our last 10 with 5 wins in a row. And we are now up 5 games on the Royals and 6 games on the White Sox for the final wild card spot in the American League. Just a game behind the Mariners to get to the second wild card spot. Although, honestly, we're going to have to get past the Red Sox or get into the division title to likely have a home field advantage for our first round series, whether it's a wild card series or potentially even a divisional series. But feeling pretty good about our prospects to make the playoffs at this point. Not expecting the team statistics to have changed much. Still 5th in runs scored, 9th in runs allowed, although the starter and bullpen ERA are both in the top half of the league at this point. 14-10 record in the month of July was the highest winning percentage we've had all year. As I mentioned, we've had a winning record every month, so certainly no reason to suspect that that will change going forward. So as we sit here on August 1st, feeling pretty good about what this team has done and our ability to hopefully guide them into the playoffs. We've got a couple of big new starters at the top of our rotation with Schwellenbach and Bradley, and they're off to good starts with us. Schwellenbach 3-1 with a 1.64 earned run average in his first 4 starts. Taj Bradley 1-1 record, but a 1.85 ERA over his first 4 starts in LA. So with King now the number 3, All-Star Christian Scott the number 4, and former Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burns is our number 5, even though he's older and not what he used to be. We've definitely turned this over the last 12 months or so from a rotation that we were just kind of getting by with to a rotation that we really like, and hopefully that will pay dividends not just this season but going forward. And we'll find out next time around if we're able to guide these Angels into the playoffs for the first time in our 3 years as general manager. Definitely feeling pretty optimistic that the Angels will end up with a winning record for the first time in over a decade. But we'll find the answers to those and many other questions, such as when will Andres Rodriguez make his major league debut, in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.